honor to have our former Governor Kukenthal with us. For those of you who do not know, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Great.
Thank you for inviting me.
Came and shared this with Felicia and I about a month ago, and Nye, who is kind of I'm assuming the brains behind this.
No, he's the brains. I'm just the tech guy.
Oh, okay. So they're both the brains behind this, but you're going to share with you this program that has been effective. Miss Rachel LeBlanc, actually, when I sent it out, had done some research on her own, and so they came out to Rachel's classroom and demoed it and got the kids started. So we have one classroom that's already up and rolling. All right. So I'm going to hand it over to you all. Do you want the lights dimmed?
Just a little bit so they can see the problems that the kids will be working on. So, all right. Well, thank you very much for that wonderful welcome, and thank you all for your time today with us. So, John Hupendal here. He started it off way back when, right?
Yeah, when I was at the Department of Education, we started a project. It was codenamed Free Throws, and the idea was to bring all the latest research in memory and learning, and especially motivation, together to create an environment where students move mathematically faster than they'd ever moved before. And in the 4 years when I was at the department, we had some spectacular successes. One Saturday, we brought together a group of highly at-risk students down at the Sunnyside School District, and they did 38,000 math problems in one day. So we knew that we were headed in the right path. When we got to the end of the 4 years, we weren't done. And at that point, Super Geek here,
It's my official name.
agreed to take over the project, oversee the project and support it, and we moved it to a laboratory school in South Phoenix with some incredibly at-risk students. When I went around to the fourth graders on the very first day, I asked each one of them, what's 5 plus 4? Not one of them could say 9. About 2/3 of them could do it on their fingers. And when I looked up their prior year third grade test scores, I had 4 students who had scored 0 on AZ merit. So they had essentially no measurable academic or mathematical ability at all. So what you're going to see here is a short video of one of those students who could add 5 plus 4 on his fingers, but not just say it fluently. And he's been in this environment for a little less than 80 days.
All right. So he's about to play this game. It's basically a simple math game that they use as a 10 to 15 minute bell work exercise. So they do it as a daily exercise every day. And the games are done in 1 minute round increments. So during that 10-15 minutes, the kid can do anywhere between 9 to sometimes 13 or 14 rounds during that time period. So here's one of the rounds. He's going to be like, man. Yes, man. All right, let's get see that game here. All right, so he's going to be answering some math problems. I'm going to zoom in here so you can have a better chance of trying to read these questions. Try to keep up.
What?
So if you notice there's a green square that represents that correct. If it was incorrect, it would show up red. But spoiler alert, every single one in this round he does is correct.
What's the grade?
He is fifth grade.
We started working with them at the beginning of 4th grade.
And so this is basically when we came back and worked with them again on 5th grade. So we're creating fluency by utilizing through automaticity.
So the question is, how do you get a student who is extremely at risk, hasn't had success, to this point? And the answer is, in about 80 days, he was doing over 1,000 math problems a day. And so the next question is, how do you get him to do 1,000 math problems a day? And that's where the research and motivation comes in. But first, let's take another look at him a little further on down the road, when he's now moved into math software to some different problem types.
So just to kind of note, they couldn't add 5 plus 4, but we also knew that none of the kids in the class liked math. So let's see him now.
Okay, go.
My name is Ryan. I'm 4th generation and I have 209,000 points and 17,353 questions.
Okay.
So can you believe that, a few months ago, he did not like math at all? So here he is. Now, this is a milestone moment, not for him, but also for us at the same time, because this was a significant time because he hasn't been working on this problem type for a week. This is his first day encounter. So when we were working in the lab class, we were like tracking the kids' progress. There's 750 standards that the kids level up through the process, and it's all through a mastery process to create fluency. So we were tracking him, and he was on his way up to hitting this level. We're like, okay, what's going to happen? Is he going to crash and burn when he hits the word problem bank? But he didn't. As you can see, he's able to process that and analyze it and actually execute the answer at speed, faster than we can even read it. So you want to review that one, John?
So if Crummy has $11, he needs X to make a total of 14. 14 minus 11 is 3. But to be able to grasp that and to be able to do it in real time is what's so impressive. And of course, he can do this because of the enormous practice volumes. He's literally, when you do 1,000 math problems a day, and you do that for an extended period of time, you're literally reprogramming every neuron in your body from your eyeballs all the way out to your fingertips. I played that game over 1,000 times. My top speed was 58. Durrani would clip out at 81 regularly. So almost double my speed, and I've been a touch typist my entire adult life. These students, when they're young, their brains are more plastic, so it's amazing what they're capable of doing. Again, we talked about the question, how do you get students to these phenomenal practice volumes? And that's the breakthrough of the whole system. And it goes to the research that was integrated into this environment. I'll let this one.
So really what that tells us, like, what we're really concerned about is that this entire process is all about incremental growth. So they're growing and moving up these levels so minutely that they don't even notice that they're gaining new abilities, because like the next one just rolls into the next and rolls into the next. I mean, the word bank was actually the first abrupt change, but we prepared him by introducing words throughout the whole process and spiraling that information into him. So it wasn't like he was just all of a sudden thrown into it.
So let's go through the 9 scientific theories are integrated into this environment. And it turns out the most important one is the human brain is uniquely motivated by a team score. And not any team score, it has to get its maximum power, it has to be instantaneous. So we define the team as the class, and so in a real-time basis, this split second, how is the class doing academically in math? And we send a powerful signal to them about how the class is doing in a real-time basis. That has a sledgehammer impact in terms of its ability to put these students into a different framework. But it's not just a team score and not instantaneous. It actually takes all 9 theories working together. Not any one of them is enough or sufficient. So the second piece of the equation is, how am I doing instantaneously, contributing to that team score that we see real time? And how am I doing real time? So the two interact with each other in a unique way that creates a strong motivation that takes away all the stress associated with pumping out math problem after math problem after math problem. I became a certified teacher after I left superintendency. First time I took the math test, I thought, engineering degree, I'll walk in there cold, I'll pass it. Well, I ended up 60 points short. I was a little rusty. So I did a bunch of math, came back in there a second time, still fell short. Then I sat down and I did 10,000 math problems. And let me tell you, the stress of studying by yourself, it's enormous. I thought I was going to vomit. I was doing so much math. But these kids, they don't feel that stress. It's a difference between swimming in the ocean and surfing. It's a world of difference when the brain is in a powerfully motivated state. And that's the key breakthrough here.
So how we manifest that is simply by this very easy cue. So in front of the class, we have projected the scoreboard and the leaderboard. So here's the scoreboard and leaderboard. It's kind of washed out right now because you can't really see it. There's a little bit. So you see that little red page there? So basically there's a line that moves across the screen, and there's individual student progress moving across as well. So that was just like a real-time shot, but then we come over here to this one here. This kind of shows you a little more regular detail. So this leaderboard scoreboard shows this class's status throughout the whole process. So it starts on red. The bar is actually partially over there.
So that's a team score up there at the top, that bar moving across the top, setting the signal. This is how we're doing real time. And it starts out at 0, and then it moves as the class scores points. It moves across the top.
So what we've done is basically this score here is automatically calculated by the system. So we have an algorithm that measures the level of output and motivation of the kids based on their historic activity. So according to this, we are saying that in about 12 minutes, or we say 15 minutes, but it's actually calculated to be 12 minutes, 25,000 points, the class should be able to score that much. And so that kind of sets the goal in points. But the other aspect is next to each student's name, we have, in addition to that, their own individual contributions that's tailored to their output ability. So we're saying in about 12 to 15 minutes, these students should be able to all make it to what we call blue and make it to the finish line.
And this is the next scientific theory. It's not any contribution. It has to be customized to that student's ability and motivation. So each one of these bars represents, when they get to goal, that's their goal. It's not a standard goal for every student. It's customized to their ability and their motivation. And what that enables us to do is the LeBron James of mathematics up there at the top, who's doing over 500 math problems. When they get to their goal, his goal is over 500, and then our special ed students their goal is 200. They are equal in the class. Everybody's bar is all the way across, it's blue, and there actually aren't any points showing there. What they know is they got to goal, and that goal is a massive goal. So even a special ed student will be doing over 70 math problems, and if you do over 70 math problems a day, you're going to move on to real ability and real fluency. And what we're finding out is a lot of special ed students, they're not special ed at all. The software reaches down to their level, picks them up, and gives them success. So that's another scientific theory, is objectives that are customized to each child are a critical piece of the whole equation to maximizing the output of the whole class.
So another thing that this scoreboard leaderboard does to you as a teacher is that it actually empowers you to do something very unique. So if you think of this as this is a 15-minute pacing guide. So we're saying, according to our calculations, every student should be at goal in 15 minutes. So what about the students who are showing that they're lagging behind? So in this case, we have two extreme examples. You would actually take care of this beforehand. So when you look at the board, you start seeing if you're thinking of this as like, you're training a group of marathon runners and everyone's running at the same equal ability, they should be all running at the same pace. But what if one person's lagging behind? So you as a coach immediately go to that athlete, ask them what's going on, see what's wrong, and did they sprain their ankle, did they pull a muscle? So then what this does is it allows you to perform real-time RTI and work with the students who are showing are struggling with certain things. So if you look at this one, the one up there that's red, he's actually working on level 8 problem types. And normally he has a 1,500 point goal. So he actually is one of the LeBron James. But what happened? He got injured. But what's going on is he hit a level that's giving him a lot of problems. So it might be a standard that they missed in like a certain grade level. Then you could go and address it, work with them on that problem type. Usually it takes 1 or 2 rounds, and then they have that aha moment, and then they could start picking up and rolling and moving up the ladder. So, and some other kids might just need some motivational cues.
Yeah, you will find students who are just simply daydreaming that day. And Hezekiah, come on, show me what you can do. And you get them going, watch them for 30 seconds. They love being observed, and they're off and going. Or you find out that they're emotionally distraught. They had a fight with somebody in their family last night. And the same thing is true, though. If you get them going, they start flowing, and they can, I would ask them all the time, okay, you're going to need to do about 4 more minutes to get to your goal. Can you do it? And not once would they ever say no. They'd always say, yeah, I can do it.
So what this does is it empowers you to be able to deal with these things in real time rather than waiting for a report, creating a special RTI package or a special lesson. So you're right there, right in the thick of it. While the other kids are still moving along and they're doing their thing, you can focus your time on the students who need it the most. So one big thing we talk about is the kid hit a new level on the ladder. So when we speak about 5th, 6th grade, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, you're constantly struggling to teach them the standards, but they're testing 2-3 years behind standards, correct? A lot of cases. So what this does is every single buddy plays the same game. So the 2nd grader is playing the same game as the 6th grader. So they all start at level 1 and they work their way up. But a 2nd grader will take a lot longer climbing that ladder than a 6th grader. So what a 6th grader would do is oh, this is easy. This is kindergarten standards, first grade standards. They'll level up, go level 10, level 15, level 16, level 17, level 18, and they reach level 19, and what happens? They go, oh gosh, where is that rung? It's missing. So what it does is it identifies the missing rungs of the standards that they've totally missed somehow when they were younger or forgot, and then it allows them to repair. So that's when they start to slow down because they hit that level. A lot of kids can actually figure it out on their own, but in some cases you need to perform RTI. And then he works on it, rebuilds that rung, and what it does is it makes the ladder firmer. So as a 6th grade or 5th grade teacher, you're teaching them the standards up here. And think of them as standing on top of the ladder, missing all these rungs. It's all rickety and wobbly, and they're trying to keep it in balance. So what that does is it utilizes all their cognitive resources to try to keep that ladder in balance, leaving no room for the lessons that you're trying to teach them, because they're counting on their fingers or depending on calculators. They have all these handicaps of doing the most basic functions, and when they do this, they firm up the ladder. What it does is it actually builds confidence too, because all of a sudden they gain this new ability that they didn't have, and lo and behold, that rung is foundational to multiple rungs of the ladder. So all of a sudden the ladder goes from this to like this.
Another one of the key scientific theories is this work that Terrence Scott has been doing in Kentucky, and it's powerful stuff. What they find is that when a student experiences 3 successes for every 1 failure, that they're at the edge of failure as a student. That you have to be in the 4 and up zone, 4 to 9 zone, really for that child to have a flourishing academic career. So what the software does is it holds students in that success zone and gets them working enough. And the other thing that happens by getting them in that success zone, they find they have students now that they're taking scans of their brains while they're doing math problems, and they're finding that one student with 9 + 8 is 17 has a glucose consumption pattern in the brain the size of a quarter, another student the size of a pinpoint. The student with the glucose consumption pattern the size of a quarter cannot do more advanced things that require more cognitive load. They're taking too much cognitive resources up for the more simple applications to be able to move on. Even though they seem like they have the same ability, they're dramatically different. So by holding the students in that success zone, you're getting them to the edge of their success and giving them the polish they need so that their brains can get down to where it's less of a cognitive load on the easier stuff that has to be fluent before they can comprehend fractions, proportions, ratios, percentages.
And what we actually aim for is a 9-to-1 success ratio at our most minimum. So how we accomplish that in our program's algorithm is think of it this, simplifying it in such a way. Okay, so the kid is working on level 19 problem types. So 50% of the questions are coming from the level 19 problem type. But then we also have what we call forward pressure, which is 20% is coming from the next level up. So being slowly introduced and spiraled into the mix to kind of like get them used to it, so that when they level up, they're not all of a sudden being jolted into that level. But on the flip side, we also have what we call back pressure. So 30% are coming from the levels previous to that to keep them also in the success zone because they've already demonstrated mastery and fluency in those levels. So basically this system, brings them up to the maximum ceiling of their learning, and then if it detects that they're having a lot of trouble and you don't have a chance to perform RTI, we ratchet them down back into the success zone so that they could work on it again, spiral back up, and so on and so forth throughout the whole process. So one of the best parts about our entire endeavor is that it's not just a math game that you do as an exercise. We're creating a culture of mathematics in the class. So culture is super important in this endeavor, because without culture, there is no longevity and there's no sustainability. It's just a math exercise. But because we framed it as you're now a team, and as a team, you're working as a group to make it to the goal. Everyone makes it to the goal. So in this case, this is a 3rd grade class in Wilson Elementary School District in downtown Phoenix, not Wilson. But here, this kid is the one, for example, is the last one to make it to the goal. So his peers are getting around him, start to surround him, cheer him on, and we're going to fast forward. He's going to finish the round. Okay, so there we go. So this is what we see is play out time and time out on all grade levels, where everyone makes it to blue. So they all make it to the finish line. It's a celebratory event and becomes part of the culture.
In the laboratory class, we were able to get to that blue board about 95% of the time. what we're finding out now is many of our teachers, rather than getting all the students to blue, they're going with a fixed time period. And at first we were very concerned about that, but we're finding out that works very well too. So you can use this thing in different different ways. If you have a tight time schedule, you can lock it in, and we watched it, and we were concerned that there might be effects, but what we're seeing is that the effects are random across the distribution, and it still works and still creates the culture.
So basically, we created a tool, and teachers are basically making what they will with it, and we've seen some very creative uses. But the best part is, like, when we introduce this to kids, this is a group of third
So do you guys want to go
TV.
home? No! You want to keep playing?
I never liked math, but they made it into a video game.
Yeah.
So he says, I never liked math, but they made it into a video game. And there's actually none of the visual distractions that you think of for modern math
Does that
games.
look like Minecraft or Fortnite? Come on.
We're very stark, but this concept of an instantaneous team score, individual, the success zone, all of this combines to activate their brain the same way video games. They move to a high state of motivation, and it's very enjoyable to them. And you can see this, we've gone back, we have an implementation going on down at Gila River Indian Community with their third grade class. And we went back down there 8 weeks after they started. Their level of motivation, the level of joy, is just as great today as it was on day one.
Actually, they're around 12 weeks now, so.
Oh.
8 weeks, that was like 8 weeks ago. Yeah, so and it's just incredible to see these kids. And the social aspect. So when we first were there, they were quiet. They were not sociable because, like, they're very, like, introverted. But now, we spoke to the principal, and they're like helping each other out. They're like cheering each other on. They're more cooperative, and the best part is, like, they actually are talking about math and their math scores outside of class. Like, they go to the bus and they're comparing math scores. They're telling each other about how they're doing. So it becomes part of their identity, and that's the thing, is like the culture, the identity. And we've seen some really crazy transformations where the mathematics identity bleed into other things that they do. So there's other math programs that other teachers use, and their output just kind of got amped up because of that. So it's just incredible to see, and we're here to present the project. But the best thing to do is to have somebody who's actually experienced it. Rachel, would you like to speak a little bit
You're
about
on
your
the
experience
spot,
the past
so why
week?
don't you just talk?
Yeah.
Hey, what's your
Your second grade
experience?
implementation, but we understand that second grade is very challenging, but she did an amazing job at whipping these kids and getting them into it.
So I guess we've only been doing it for 4 weeks, but my students are definitely very motivated. They enjoy it, and it took a little while for me to figure out like where to see I think the biggest thing that they like overall is the group score, because so many of them, like you said, do video games and things like that. They love, like, once they're constantly like looking at to see where they're at, to try and meet the team score or team goal. And when they get there, it's like a collaborative, like, random cheer that'll go up across the classroom. So that collaborative thing, my SPED students, I guess, have been my biggest excitement with it, because sometimes they don't see the success as frequently maybe, or as cheered on, and the fact that they can also be blue, like the whole group across the board can show that growth. One of my little girls, who's extremely low, was like going at it and like super excited because she was showing that she could do just what everyone else was doing. And so I haven't done it for that long, but I will say, like, I am noticing like the problems are increasing in complexity, and things like math facts where at the beginning I was seeing a lot of my kids doing them on fingers. They're starting to like have them more as rote memorization, and in my mind that's going to definitely help when we get to higher math concepts, that they don't have to worry about doing that on the fingers. We're doing double-digit addition, and so I'm noticing just with what they're doing, oh, I know that, and it's helping with the bigger numbers.
The testimony you just heard is 4 days in. 4 days in. Can you imagine? There's going to be TV cameras rolling in here because there's students who are going to, it's going to be what's going on in that classroom. We don't even claim credit for it. You have one incredible teacher sitting there. What's going on in the classroom is as powerful a thing as we've ever observed. And we get to observe a lot of powerful things. That, and it's not just this. It's the teacher interacts with this environment. It's like a coat of armor and a sword, you still have to go out and do battle. And so it's going to be amazing to see what happens when a student is doing 200 plus math problems all the way through 2nd grade and then on into 3rd grade. It's going to be sensational. You saw Durrani. Now, he didn't get on this till 4th grade. You can imagine where he would be if he had been on this, say, since kindergarten. So it's going to be something to see. We have solved a number of scientific riddles to put this all together, and it's truly something unique and very powerful. The most powerful testimonial here is the SPED kids. Because the software reaches all the way down to just number identification. That's all a lot of children can do, is identify numbers. But guess what? It gets them in that success zone, and they realize they're controlling this computer, they're identifying numbers, then they get over into counting, and they realize they can count, then they're doing 1 plus 1. We get them fluent at 0 plus 1, 1 plus 1. We don't even reach out all the way to 0 plus 5 until they get fluent at the lower numbers. These are things they can do, and all of a sudden it changes their whole attitude.
I think the only other thing I would add in is that the leaderboard, I think the only caution I had about it was the fact that when they first put up the leaderboard, so my class, I know my students, they're very competitive with one another, almost to a negative point, where if one person isn't as good on something, they can suddenly feel maybe less secure about themselves. And so we had a class discussion after the first day about the use of the leaderboard and how the goal is that we're all trying just to get to blue, and that's not a level of one person's higher than another, but how like on a video game, like when you play video game to other people, like when you get to the end of your level, other people might be ahead of you, but you go home and cry about that. And so they made that comparison with the video games, and it really helped them. So then today we put that leaderboard, I put the leaderboard back up, and it definitely I could see their perception changing just by having a quick discussion on that. I think the other thing that you didn't mention was the factor of it uses the unknown of x on both sides of the equation, so 2 different equations. So sometimes I know I don't always hit that like I should maybe in some of my teaching, and so the kids having to use both sides of the equation definitely has been helpful.
Excellent, and that speaks to a very important point, because everyone has, you always have kind of like this visceral fear about the leaderboard, ranking and things like that. Now, we've done over 100 schools and classrooms, and that is brought up quite a few times, and not a single teacher after we've implemented, kind of coached them through the whole process, has had any problems with kids using it as a negative tool. It's always been uplifting. People look at it as making it to blue, but there's also upward mobility. So we actually had in one case, one kid who was at the bottom. He was an ELL student, struggling the first day. We come back 6 weeks later, he was number 1 and on top of the leaderboard, 30% higher than the next kid up. So he found his stride, and he went soaring right up. So we really are actually going to have you guys experience it. So we're going to get you, so you guys have your devices, so what's the best way to do it? We had some great testimony, know a little bit more science. We're going to have you play, but I'm pulling this off really quickly to kind of show you what happened with Holmes Elementary. They're only in their 3rd week. This is a class of 4th graders. This is the most amazing thing we've ever seen out of all the classes. A group of 4th graders, 2.5, 3 weeks in, one kid has already made it up to 32. That's higher than some of our high school kids who are playing this game.
That's higher than a lot of our high school
Yeah,
kids.
a lot of our high school kids. This kid actually ended up going home. He was so addicted to it, he went home and played it almost every single night for half an hour.
A young Hispanic 4th grader at Holmes Elementary School. The other thing to look at this is they have done 59,796 math problems in how many weeks did you say?
About 3 weeks now.
Yeah, 3 weeks. So the levels of practice that we're talking about are just off the charts.
Yeah, total accumulated time, 69 hours of math practice time as the whole class is done. So we bring this up because I'm blown away by the level of enthusiasm, and I can see that his level of enthusiasm is infecting other kids near him who are also working their way up and basically usually our top kids become a role model, and they become like the Michael Jordan, LeBron James, I'm like, oh yeah, if he can do it, then we can do it as well, and move on up. So basically, let's go ahead and with your computers, we're going to get you set up here with an account. So just basically follow. Hold on a second. Just tap. Oh, there it is. Okay. So here are the instructions that we're going to do. So you're just going to go ahead and open up a website and navigate yourselves to here. And then you're going to click on Create. And I'm going to basically go through the account creation process. At one point, it's going to ask you for a course code. You're going to click on that.
So
I would ask you
to
to
go to www. This is LMS.kpcompass.
That's an LMS. And I also would like to ask you if you would please set your passwords as KP. Because the reason why is because that way if you're having any problems, I can quickly log in and see what's going on with you or your students so that I don't have to go through a bunch of hoops to help you out. So click on Create, and you're going to have to click on Create twice. So once to initiate the second password line and then another time to basically acknowledge it. Then you're going to type in your name, your email address again, and then a course code. And if anybody needs any help, please raise your hand. Lowercase kp, please. Lowercase kp. Keep it simple. Yes?
He says that he went home and did it on his own, so it's, like, how does that work towards the leaderboard? Like, have you seen people use it not the whole class where it's
Well, it's because the leaderboard works as a cultural motivation. So we established that culture.
I was too. I was very impressed by that one. That's so funny.
Mine didn't work.
Oh, we didn't know. We have
Don't do that as well. So you can do it. So you can see it as small as groups as small as 5. Or team of 4. So yeah, so it does work that way. So we usually discourage home use, but we've actually found that if you create a strong culture and the kids create an identity of mathematics and culture. Like we had one teacher, we came back a month later, and we asked, okay, who plays it at home? Half the kids rose their hands. I'm like, oh wow, okay, I guess it's working. So.
Oh, no, the password.
KP.
Oh, it's actually 750 standards, and I'll actually show you the list when we get to the game itself. Very basic math facts and moves up algebra. It goes all the way up to square root and exponents. So you're there. And if you click on Start Learning and you have an error message, then let me know. If you click on Start Learning and you get an error message, let me know.
Should we be able to let me
Okay. Yeah, usually we do a control start, but we're going to let you guys just start playing it right now. So we'll give you an example of how we run the game, but go ahead and start playing the game right now. Yeah, go ahead and start game. We're not going to wait for everyone to do a control start.
Okay, 15, 16. I can't. Oh. Come on,
Okay, so if the start game button doesn't work, click on the bottom scroll bar once, and then click on start game. So, yeah, the gray thing. There's a little bottom scroll bar. Okay.
Oh man. And you push enter.
Yeah, and press enter. And then, so basically, you're going to be answering math problems. So go ahead. So we're starting out what we call the level. We're starting you guys off with what we call the level of noob level. So it's really designed for kindergarten, first, second, third, and maybe fourth, depending on the kid's ability. So it's very simple number of
Oh, my bad.
It's the bottom gray bar on the bottom.
What just happened?
There you go.
Something isn't right. Thank you.
So, oh wait, you need to start. Oh wait, oh, you need to step 2.
Don't give me.
Okay. All right. So you're starting off at a very basic level. Yeah, usually kids 4th grade and up will level up through that fast.
I did it. I got Chromie. What's
Okay,
right
so
now?
everyone
My
gets
God,
to
there's
the
one.
again.
Buckethead. Buckethead.
All right, so So normally we do a control start. We usually say, okay, everyone ready? We're gonna do a countdown, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we set a timer for 15 minutes and we see how fast they do it. So the class goal is 7,800 points for initially. The first game that they play, we're analyzing their output ability, so there's no individual goals at first. So basically keep playing the game until we get to the first class goal. So it'll probably only take you guys about 2-3 minutes to get there. Because you're all adults, right?
Stop.
And you guys are really good at math.
When I'm done, I'll help.
Why does this keep happening?
I'm racing her.
So you finish your first round, start your next one.
Good job.
So, good job. We're racing against the clock. I bet you guys can beat the 5th graders.
Okay.
My mouse is covered because I can't use it, so I use mouse.
All right, so look, the leaderboard is up, the scoreboard is updated. Well, it looks like we're about 20% of our way there. And according to my watch, it's only been 1 minute, so you guys are cranking along. Yeah. You guys might be smarter than a 6th grader.
You are perfect. I don't think I should tell some perfect score. Winning is becoming a habit.
So right now we don't have the individual bars for the students, so we can't really perform real-time RTA. So the first time you run it, it's all about like making sure that the kids are engaged. So what John's doing is he's modeling behavior of teachers, just kind of walking around, making sure that their fingers are moving. You know, once in a while we run into a kid who's doing like what do you call it? Disruptive behavior, right, John? So what's that behavior that they exhibit when they're like being negative or oppositional defiant? So actually, on the first day we find get these oppositionally defiant kids, get them going, and then all of a sudden a switch happens and they go from, oh, I'm not going to do this, to, oh, this is something cool. And then we pull up the leaderboard and all of a sudden they go, wow, I'm going to do that now. So a lot of really cool effects. So we're about halfway there. You guys are doing great.
I don't know.
It does that.
I think I must have been.
So it's going to get a little hard. You're going to start
When you've
leveling
done
up
your
system.
round.
Oh, that's scary. What the heck?
My computer's gonna blow up. That's funny. I messed it up. I broke it.
Maybe you're not sure about that.
Oh, you are playing. Oppositionally defiant. So you guys are doing really good. I see a lot of people with greens and 2 lines. Man, you guys are some math wizards. So we got here, the bar is turned yellow, as you can see here, we're over halfway, we meet the halfway mark.
I'm not looking.
Taylor, do you want mine? No, I'm okay. You sure? It's kind of fun. It's kind of ridiculous.
Lisa, you should take video for us to show my kids. All of us like being competitive. We can beat them. I thought we already were. Can you imagine you come in to help my kids and I'm over here in the corner doing it myself right now? Hey, you'll be fine. Go to your beanbag and cry. You're good. I'm too busy.
So you guys are being the 4th graders. Good job.
Yeah, just go. I'm doing my math facts. No? Oh my gosh. Oh, really? Wow, you're on fire. Let's keep stoking those coals.
Yeah, this is a very social game. Kids are getting into it. Depending on how you operate the classroom, like we do encourage interactions, talking. Some classes allow for movements. Kids can like get up, look at the move around a bit.
I got the one behind.
All right, just turn green. We're 1 step away from it, so probably in 30 seconds you guys will hit goal.
It's okay.
So look at that.
I was going to try to like yell at her first to distract you. Then you will have that kid that goes.
And then you go here.
3, 2. Amazing. She just told me. 97.
So you guys anybody get into harder form problem actually?
And I get extra like I should have. I got
All right, good. And we have Mark 4 minutes and 30 seconds. You guys made it to goal. So as a team, you guys can finish our round, but you can see that during that time, you guys did a cumulative output of 1 hour 44 minutes, 3,195 questions correct. So you guys are just shy of 5th grade. So, just kidding. No, so we can see that some of you have made it to level 1 bag.
You beat me. We were
So now that we have this first calculation done, our next goal tomorrow is 20,000 points.
Good job, Anna.
Did
Did you just say Lisa's at the bottom?
Second to bottom. She said, no, she said because that's why you wanted to give your computer over to help them.
You're really hard. Who is? Vern has no. He's the one. Why?
Jody, no.
Why don't I have anything red?
I thought we.
Because I stopped?
Yeah, you
So
guys
if you
are starting.
leave, I only did 2 rounds. How many rounds?
That is so funny.
Jody won't stop. Jody's not stopping and she's not sharing.
She has a redder email.
So you guys are doing really well. So you guys, teachers, attention please.
Welcome to my world.
Everyone back in focus again.
Oh, I screwed up. I hit the key 2 times.
Social behavior, management skills here. So you can see like, the game over, now you guys just experience it. You saw the first 30 levels that's used to get kids into number identification. Typically remove it for fourth, fifth, and sixth, but we actually option that to the teacher depending on the level of their students. So for a 4th grader, we'll easily level through that. But some kids may need that level of reinforcement for number. So just kind of want to show you, so really quickly here, this is like the standards. So we all started with what we call warming up, and then you're moving up through these different standards here. So I had the question about that. So, and all these are listed out, so see that?
Oh, wow.
A lot of different standards that they're going to climb through. 60 tiers, 750 standards, or problem types we call it.
Fractions and mixed numbers, decimals.
So imagine if a kid
Wow,
can do
that's
any
cool.
of these upper ones at speed, how amazing would they be? And we currently are talking now at exponents, square roots, and whatnot. But when we actually have kids start to hit that level, maybe some high schooler might get there. Actually, we're thinking that the kid in Holmes is going to hit that by the end of the year easily. We're going to add more levels to it. So this is just kind of like where we're at right now, but then we can keep building on it and keep moving up the ladder and scaffolding. So that was really exciting. You guys really got into it. I was excited. That energy was really palpable.
One thing to think about, the Gallup Corporation has done a ton of research in education communities, and one of their key questions that they ask for the health of a community is, did you laugh or smile a lot yesterday? So thinking of all the smiling that just happened here and the laughter, it was a joyous event. And that's what we observed among the students. It was like you could hear these squeals of joy as students were getting through there and experiencing the success. It's palpable what this environment creates. So you got a sense of it right there, and we certainly did, listening and watching to how this was moving forward.
All right, so basically we're here to field any additional questions that you might have, but the purpose of this is to introduce you to it as a whole school so that you as the faculty can decide, is this something that would fit our school culture, and you guys want to create a school identity and culture in mathematics utilizing what we're doing here. So this is something that, like, we've been fortunate working with Mesa, that, working with Sean Enright and Lisa Hammond, that they saw the potential when we introduced it to them last year, and they said, try to, get it in, but the thing is, they wanted us to do a grassroots, bottom-up approach. So basically, the schools that we're approaching, it's all opt-in. So, it's not coming from the top down. This is like, do you want to do this? Do you find it beneficial to your classes? Then you make a decision. So, any questions? Yes.
What does it look like in kindergarten?
Same exact game.
But if we don't have one-on-one devices, could this be maybe seen as like a station?
What you want to do,
how
like
would you
if
do
you
that?
don't have one-on-one, is for however many devices you have, you would create them as a team. So then that would be team A, B, C, or D, and then they would run this exercise as a team. And at kindergarten, we've actually done little short spurts, and they actually really take off. Really love it. But it is a challenge, of course. But if you create them as a team and then you run them as a team consistently, they create that identity.
The one thing that was so extraordinary going into the second grade class, and we knew we were with an unusual teacher, is the challenge that you have as you move from third grade in the third grade to kindergarten zone is that it can take as much time for the student to log in, and that challenge of logging in and getting to the math can last longer than the math does itself. And so one of the things that we want to put out to you is that was solved. That was amazing what we saw there. It took them only less than 3 minutes to get into the math. And so that issue of the user IDs and passwords, that is something that we need to, as a community, explicitly address independently almost of the math. That you have to create a training algorithm to teach them their user ID to where they get that speed. So the world champion is sitting right there. We have never seen anything like that. We've experienced this a lot, and it is our major stress event for third grade and below. The logging in and putting in the password. It's not, you know, as we go school to school and we observe this, we go like, wow, this should be a major policy kind of thing, and that is addressed because it's preventing these students from accessing some incredible environments. So, having said that, know that you know, we're thinking about all kinds of things. The simplest possible user ID, the simplest possible password, algorithms for.
Yeah, typically we say your password could be 1, 2, 3, or the number 1, or the letter A.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be complicated. Who's going to want to hack into the students' math accounts? So we have strategies and ways, and basically we work with you on creating that strategy to do that. But this is actually something I forgot to bring up earlier. This is like the most telling of what we've done.
The AZ Merit has a scale. It's just like a yardstick kind of thing, and it's the most scientific way of looking at the academic performance of students. From the end of third grade till the end of 8th grade, the typical student in Arizona gains 25 points a year. So you can think of that as one grade level of progress. In the laboratory class, my students went up 44 points on average. We had 3 students go up over 100 points, which would be 4 years of progress. And it wasn't just on AZ Merit. Independently, we had a measurement system called Galileo that is quite scientific, and those students all went from below the 35th percentile to above the 80th percentile over the course of the measurements that they were taking there. Now, this was me. Classroom management skills over there far surpassing my classroom management skills. So I'm thinking that we will see teachers beat this, that they will get more than
double the
44
gains.
points. They will be able to double the gains. At that school, they got all of the letter grade points that you can get for academic growth, and the new letter grade system has 9 different ways that you can score points for growth. You can score points for growth of your ELL students, your bottom quartile students, your average student, and your special education students. So the academic growth, you know, a lot of these students are so far below standard that there's no way that you can get them in a year, but guess what? You can grow them enough that you can get them in 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, but in the meantime, you can maximize your academic growth scores for your letter grade.
And what did they get? You have to mention that.
Oh, they went from a D/F school to a B school in 1 year.
So, and actually I want to point this out. You know, these students down here, these 4, those were our SPED students, and you can see they had gains. And you know, that's not a normal thing we see, especially on AZ Merit. So that's just incredible. Just want to kind of point that out to you. Like, you know, there's so much potential, so much energy from this project that we don't know what's going to do in the next year or 2, and that's why we want to work with specific schools to kind of boost that up and make you guys models. So, any other questions? No, we pretty much thoroughly answered all your. So, I guess you know, comments. What do you think as a group? What do you think? You know,
How do we start this?
how do we start this? Okay, great question. How do we start this? Well, I guess you'll have a meeting with the administration about it, but we're open and ready to get you guys started at any time. So So like, tomorrow we're going to be basically starting at Wilson. I know that Ishikawa is going to be coming on board very shortly here. They just put in a requisition, so it's Porter, Keller. So it's quite a number of schools that we've already met with so far, and hopefully more. So
One thing I would encourage you to do is it's got its own, there's a distinct culture here, and as we said, it's the armor and the sword. It's still the person, the teacher, who's got to play a very valuable role, and you need to really think this on through, because one of the things, the teacher has to be active in this environment, watching for those students who are falling behind and moving to those students and watching them, encouraging them, doing that intervention. If that's it's a particular way of interacting with students, and so you need to make sure that you're comfortable with doing that. So really, this is a significant decision. Having said that, though, we're very comfortable with you saying, look, I haven't decided to do this, but I would like to experience it. So we can come in and set it all up and run it. Was what, half hour, 35 minutes? Half hour, 35 minutes, and you can have the experience, and then you can make the decision. So we're glad to do that. This is what we do. And so you can make it all the way to that point and say, you know what, I'm still not quite sure yet, I'll hold on. So we would be glad to give you the experience, and as many teachers would like to.
yeah. So all right. So we're done here. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming. And I was still in last night's brain, so I made the mistake, so you guys all know that this was one of our former superintendents. So just to clarify, for those of you who are out of state, I said governor, I'm still in last night's mode.
Yeah, I know. We were up late watching the midterms as well.
I can tell somebody it was definitely, you voted yesterday, I hope. I hope that
Yes,
sticker's
yeah.
on.
I just got a sticker on. It's a memento. Yeah, I voted today.
What happened? Felicia is sending out a question in the Google Classroom asking if you are interested in this, so if you would just respond to that, and then more information will come about next steps. So thank you guys. Thank you for working so hard today. You guys got a lot done, so enjoy the rest of your afternoon.